Improper turns, like the one seen here at the intersection of Christie and Delancey Streets heading toward the Williamsburg Bridge, and illegal lane changes, like these at the FDR exit ramp on the Brooklyn Bridge. They're dangerous, they're inconsiderate, and they're against the law. Drivers' explanations range from the straightforward.
Do you feel like it's okay for you to come to the very front of the line and then cut over?
But I go to JFK.
To the confused.
Other people have been waiting in line for 5 minutes. You've cut right to the front. Do you feel it's your right to do that?
Everybody doing it.
No, not everybody's doing it. Most people are waiting in the line. A lot of people. So if a lot of people do the wrong thing, that makes it right?
No.
So you don't believe it's the right thing?
No.
But you're going to do it anyway?
Yep.
Mayor Michael Bloomberg has long advocated a congestion pricing program that would ease traffic in Manhattan and raise revenue through tolls on the East River bridges and northern conduits into the city. His plan ultimately failed to get approval in Albany in 2007. But ticketing drivers for illegal turns and improper lane changes doesn't require an act of legislation. It simply requires police to enforce laws that are already on the books. At first glance, this seems pretty straightforward. With drivers making illegal turns and lane changes literally one after another in certain intersections in Manhattan, police officers wouldn't be able to write tickets fast enough to keep up with the violators. In 2009, 27% of all traffic tickets written in New York City were issued in Manhattan. In the vicinity known by police as Manhattan South, which encompasses the entire borough below the southern end of Central Park, that number is just 17%. Yet this area makes up the vast majority of the area affected by Mayor Bloomberg's proposed tolls. Charles Komanoff, longtime policy analyst and advocate of a congestion pricing program, spent 3 years creating the Balanced Transportation Analyzer, which he believes can predict traffic patterns in the southern half of Manhattan based on the cost of tolls in specific spots. He is doubtful that the increased enforcement of moving violations such as improper turns and illegal lane changes would significantly ease traffic congestion.
So I tend to believe that a very aggressive ticketing program that was designed to bust gridlock very significantly would snare just about everybody who drives, and not just, once a year, but maybe once every few months, and up to a point where it would become politically untenable.
Matthew Weiss, an attorney specializing in fighting traffic tickets, is more optimistic.
It makes a lot of sense to enforce intersections which are either ones where there's heavy violations or prone for accidents. We have a lot of pedestrians that are hurt in New York, so there are certain intersections which make more sense than others because the stats show that these are not as safe as other intersections.
I used to have a close friend with whom I would debate traffic, and we put it in terms of the volume theory versus the jerk theory. And she believed in the jerk theory, that it was jerks and a relatively small number of drivers who, by double parking or cutting in line, impeded traffic and were responsible for a huge amount of gridlock. Whereas I leaned more toward the volume theory, that it was a systemic issue, and that we are all prone to some extent to behaviors that make the situation even worse.
Well, New York City currently enforces improper turns. That's where someone turns from the center lane as opposed to the left or right lane, and basically tries to get ahead of the people that are waiting their turn in line. So while it is enforced, there are plenty of intersections where it's not enforced, and plenty of places where it will be economical for an officer to enforce that intersection because there's plenty of people breaking the law there.
I've desired for a very long time a much more aggressive police presence here in New York City that would target not so much drivers on the highways and expressways that are endangering other drivers. I mean, that's a problem, but there are some resources devoted to that, and people in cars do have seat belts and airbags and crumple zones. I'm talking rather about violations that drivers commit on streets and roads that put vulnerable active travelers, walkers and bike riders at risk. And I'm not saying that it's a simple thing to deploy police to stop that or discourage that, but it certainly could be done.
These tickets that you're talking about, improper turn and crossing a zebra stripe, are actually very easy tickets for an officer to prove. In contrast, for example, a speeding ticket has many elements, such as training, such as the equipment, the manufacturer's specs, the testing of that equipment, and none of this testimony is required on an improper turn or in a zebra stripe situation. So they're actually easier tickets to win and for officers to prove their case, and they're actually quicker to prosecute as opposed to a speeding ticket.
It is against NYPD policy for police to give interviews without approval. But one traffic officer, such as the one seen here, briefly explained off camera that he sends cars making improper turns through intersections in order to maintain what he called his rhythm. He has the authority to write tickets, but on foot, he is virtually powerless against a driver who flees. He added he dislikes when drivers make improper turns, and when he can, he enforces the law.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you.
There is no easy way to ease congestion in Manhattan and raise revenue for our cash-strapped city. So it seems that rude and dangerous drivers will forever be cutting others off with improper turns and illegal lane changes.